I was never the daughter they bragged about. Growing up, I learned quickly that some families don't love equally. My sister Amanda was the trophy. Blonde, tall, smiled on cue, always winning medals for things I didn't even know were competitions. And me, I was the one, behind the camera, literally. While Amanda posed in pageants, I was asked to take photos. "You're more creative, Hannah," Mom would say as she handed me the lens. But it wasn't about creativity. It was about hiding me. Still, I made peace with it. Found my own way. I moved away after high school, went to a modest college, worked two jobs, and raised a daughter. Entirely on my own. Her name is Josie, and from the second she arrived, I promised myself I'd raise her differently than how I was raised. Fully loved, fully seen, fully safe. Josie wasn't the kind of child magazines write about. She wasn't thin, didn't have perfect hair, didn't like wearing bows or ruffled dresses. But she was brilliant, funny, inquisitive. The kind of girl who built paper cities in the living room and asked questions like, "Do stars ever get lonely?" at bedtime. Her eyes were the same stormy gray as my grandmother's, the one person who once told me I mattered. I never once saw Josie as anything less than magical. When she was 7, we were invited to a rare family reunion photo shoot at my parents' estate. Something my mother, Diana, planned to hang above the fireplace. I was surprised by the invitation. Honestly, we hadn't been close in years. The last time I visited with Josie, she spilled juice on a rug, and my father glared at her like she'd burned the house down. But Amanda was coming with her twins, and apparently Mom wanted everyone there for the photo. I should have trusted my gut. The morning of the shoot, Josie picked out her favorite green sweater and purple skirt. "I want to wear this," she said confidently, twirling for me in our apartment's tiny hallway. "Because it's me." And it was quirky, bold, full of life. I smiled and said she looked beautiful. When we arrived at my parents' home, I knew instantly we didn't belong. The house had been redone. Everything white, glass, marble. Amanda's twins were dressed in matching cream suits, hair slicked to perfection. My mother wore pearls. My father didn't greet us. He just looked at Josie like he was still deciding if she was worth acknowledging. Then it happened. We were all standing near the front foyer when Mom pulled me aside. Her voice was low, clipped. "Hannah, I think it would be better if Josie sat this one out." I blinked. What photo? It's just the theme is clean and uniform. Amanda's boys are dressed identically, and Josie's outfit, well, it's distracting. "She's 7, I said, already trembling. "She's just not photogenic." Mom added carefully, her eyes not meeting mine. "You know how these things last forever. Maybe she could take a separate picture with you. Just not for the main family portrait." My ears were ringing. "You're saying my daughter is too ugly to be in your photo." "I didn't say that," she snapped. "Don't twist it. I said she doesn't match the aesthetic." My father, who overheard, muttered under his breath, "You always make things difficult." Josie, who had been playing with Amanda's kids nearby, must have sensed the tension. She walked up to me and tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, are we still taking pictures?" I bent down, swallowing a hurricane. "Not today. Baby," I whispered. "We're going home." And we did. No screaming, no dramatic scene. Just a quiet, painful walk back to the car. Josie didn't ask why, but the way she slumped in the back seat, clutching her skirt in her fists, told me everything. Her light was dimming, and it was my family's fault. I didn't sleep that night. I watched Josie snore softly in bed, clutching her stuffed turtle, and I cried. Not because of the photo, but because she now carried a weight I spent most of my life trying to shake. That voice that says, "You don't belong. You're not enough. Your joy doesn't match the room." And I realized something cruel. My parents hadn't just mistreated me. They were willing to pass that legacy of cruelty onto my daughter. The next morning, I blocked their numbers. No explanation, no second chances, No room for revisionist apologies. They made their choice in front of her, and I made mine. Josie would never again be put in a room where she had to question. If she was welcome, I would build a life where her wild colors, her laughter, her mismatched socks were celebrated, not erased. But I had no idea that decision would lead to a chain of events. That would not only change our lives forever, but put my parents' cruel words on public display in the most unexpected way. 2 months passed. No word from my parents, no missed calls, no apologies. Amanda sent a vague text once. Sorry about the mix-up at the photo shoot. You know how Mom is. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Josie seemed to bounce back quickly on the surface at least. She still wore her wild outfits, still built paper cities. But I noticed she avoided mirrors a little more. She stopped smiling with her teeth in pictures. Once while we were walking home from school, she asked, Mom, do you think I'm distracting? That was the moment I knew their poison had sunk in. So I did something impulsive. That night, I signed Josie up for a local children's art program at the City Museum. It wasn't about talent. It was about expression. I wanted her to be surrounded by people who saw beauty in difference, not flaws. The first day of class, she wore her green sweater again. The one my mother said clashed. Her teacher, a woman named Miss Ray, kneeled beside her and said, that color makes your eyes look like magic. Did you know that? Josie beamed. 3 weeks later, Miss Ray pulled me aside. Your daughter's mind. It's electric. She paints emotion like someone 3 times her age. I hope you don't mind. One submitted one of her pieces to the Young Eyes competition. It's statewide. The museum sponsors it every year. I was stunned. You did what? She laughed. I couldn't help it. I've been teaching for over a decade. Jose's special. 2 weeks later, Jose's painting, an abstract swirl of messy colors with the title, How It Feels to Be Left Out of a Picture, was chosen as the grand prize winner. It was bold, haunting, beautiful. The painting, along with a quote from Josie, sometimes people say you don't fit in their photo. That just means they can't see the whole picture. Was featured in the museum's front gallery and published in the local newspaper. That's when the calls started again. From numbers I didn't recognize, then from Amanda, then from a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, the article had gone some viral. Parents were reposting it, artists were commenting, and local news outlets had reached out for interviews. Jose's name was everywhere, and so was the story behind that painting. Not a full expose, but enough that people started asking, was this about her family? Amanda texted again. Mom is furious. She says you embarrassed her. Publicly. I stared at my screen for a moment before replying. No, she did that herself. I just let the world see the frame she tried to crop us out of. The museum called 3 days later with an invitation we hadn't expected. We're hosting a live gallery showcase for the finalists of the Young Eyes program. The director said, we'd like Josie to speak about her painting. Just a few words, nothing scripted. I nearly said no. She was only 7. But when I told Josie, her eyes lit up like I hadn't seen in months. Can I wear my green sweater? She asked. You can wear anything you want. The night of the event, I helped her brush out her curls and pin a little silver clip in her hair, the one her late great-grandmother had given me as a child. She looked in the mirror and whispered, I hope I don't look too distracting. I knelt beside her and took both her hands. Baby, I said, you're not a distraction. You're the art. We arrived at the gallery just before sunset. The room was filled with families, press, museum board members, and artists. Jo's S painting had been moved to the center of the exhibit wall with soft lighting. That made the colors glow. Her quote was printed underneath in bold. Sometimes people say you don't fit in their photo. That just means they can't see the whole picture. We were surrounded by strangers. But then I noticed familiar silhouettes near the back of the room. My parents. My mother in a beige wrap. My father in his pressed collar, stiff as ever. Amanda was with them, eyes darting around, trying not to look guilty. I hadn't told them about the event. Clearly, someone else had. For a moment, my stomach twisted. Old instincts, old fears. But then I looked at Josie standing in front of her painting, holding a note card in her small hand. And I stood a little taller. When they called her name, Josie stepped forward to a podium barely tall enough for her. Miss Ray adjusted the mic. Josie smiled, then took a breath. The room hushed. This is my painting. I made it because sometimes people don't want you in their picture. But that doesn't mean you're not beautiful. It means they don't see right. She looked up, scanning the crowd. I made this painting the day someone told my mommy I wasn't pretty enough to be in the family photo. I heard it. I didn't cry. I just made this instead. A low, collective gasp moved through the room. My mother's hands dropped to her side. My father's jaw clenched. Josie continued sweetly, simply. But my mommy says I'm the whole picture, so I believe her. Applause thundered through the gallery. Not polite clapping. Real, rising, stand on your feet applause. People we didn't know stood and cheered. Some wiped away tears. I didn't look at my parents. I didn't need to. Their silence was loud enough. After the event, the museum director pulled me aside. There's someone from the Today Show here. They want to do a segment on Josie. Would you be open to that? I blinked. Are you serious? He smiled. Your daughter's voice matters, and frankly, more people need to hear it. The next week, Josie sat in a bright studio chair with her green sweater and silver hair clip and told millions of viewers, sometimes grown-ups don't understand how words stay in your heart. But I made art out of it. That's what you do with her. And that was the day the world saw what I had always known. The girl they called to distracting, not photogenic, not a match, was the most radiant soul in the room. Later that month, the museum gifted us a framed print of her painting. I hung it in our living room right above the couch, a reminder, a declaration. 2 weeks after the segment aired, I got a letter in the mail from my parents. No return address. Just a short note. We were wrong about you, about her, about everything. We're sorry. If you ever want to talk, we'll listen now. I read it once, then tucked it into a drawer. Not out of spite, but because closure doesn't require reopening. Some doors stay shut because the room behind them no longer fits the life you're building. And Josie and we were building a world full of color, crooked smiles, and bright green sweaters. A world where no one ever again had to wonder if they belonged in the picture. Because they were the picture. And that was more than enough.